Today we're going to talk about how to declutter every room in the house. First, I'm going to talk about a recent case that we did that was whole home organizing. Then I'm going to give some overall tips. Next, I'm going to cover each room and things to consider for each space. And finally, I'm going to talk about what might be holding you back. So first, I want to share a story of a recent client that we had. A couple with dogs, and they had like a condo townhome. So it had some attachments on the outside, but inside it felt like a smallish single family home, and it had 2 levels. So the thing about when you're thinking about every room in the house is things can be kind of in the wrong spaces. So an example would be when you walked in the front door right away, there was a huge pile of shoes. And how many of us have that, right? The huge pile of shoes or box of shoes by the door. No shoe rack or anything. But then when I came around past the kitchen, next to the garage, there was a large closet which was being used. And then on the other side, it was almost like a little hallway. There was a little cutout set back, set back from where the doorway was. And it was perfect. I said, this is a waste of space. They had a couple totes, some reusable bags. I said, this should be, a giant thing of shelves. You should be able to put all your shoes here. Maybe there's a couple pairs by the front door, but there was room for all the shoes nicely to be on a rack. It was right next to the kitchen, so I could see maybe appliances or extra kitchen items that didn't really fit in the pantry going there. It was really a waste of space. So that's just one example. Another example, they were pretty overwhelmed with paperwork, and so when I opened the drawers, some of the drawers in the kitchen, it was just stuffed with mail. So suddenly then you can't put your silverware or your serving spoons, things like that away because you have mail stuffed in the drawer because you don't want people to come over and look at the mail. So it just begins this like a cascading waterfall of one thing is out of place and then the next thing can't go where it's supposed to and the next thing can't go where it's supposed to. So really decluttering every room in the house is a smart strategy because you have to sort of address, I guess that's more the organizing side than the decluttering, but you have to address where items belong first and overall. And if you just kind of do one area, sometimes what happens is a person will just move things into another area, but it really doesn't feel better or get better because you're just kind of moving it from here to there and not really addressing the core issue. So that's a little story. What I wanted to talk about next was some overall tips. So you want to do a big sort first. So kind of like what I was saying, you want to look around the house and consider the purpose for each space. And that's the first activity, is just getting the items to the correct room. Like that might be the first thing, especially if things are pretty bad. So, if you have clothing, we did another whole home not too long ago, and she had clothing kind of everywhere, in every room. You shouldn't have clothing in every room. You want to have your clothing in one area. Maybe the laundry room and then a bedroom where you put things away. So you want to really consider what the main purpose of the room is, and then do that big sort. Then after you've done that, that's when you can go back through and you can really say, okay, hey, in the example of clothing I was just giving, hey, if I have this closet to store my things, how much can I reasonably store in this closet or in this closet and dresser that I have? So that's when you can go through and you're really decluttering. It's the second pass, and that's when you're creating the proper homes. So again, if things aren't bad, you can kind of do all this at once. But if you're here watching videos, You want to consider, like, are things in the proper area? So when you're entering a room, you're considering the purpose. So that's the critical thinking, right? It's sipping your coffee, sipping your hot tea. How do I want this room to feel? What do I want this room to be? What's the goal for this room? Is it to be a guest room? Is it to be a yoga room? Is it to have a reading nook? Is it, this is my home office. It's also a guest room. So if we do have a guest come over, they can do that. And it's also my office where I work all the time. So what's the purpose? Thinking about what actually gets used. Then the goal is really to remove excess. So things that you bought, you had good intention, people gave you stuff, you don't really need it. It hasn't really worked out, you don't really like it. Those are the things to get rid of. And then the last step is when you're really fine-tuning, organizing everything. What do you use every day? Make sure that's easy and upfront to access, to get out. It's simple, it feels good. The things that you use less often, that's what you want in the back, in the longer term storage. In every room, another tip is to just consider how much visual stimulation you like. Every person is different with this. Some people, I say it's like one person likes spaghetti, somebody else likes Alfredo. Some people want a very minimalist look. Other people want a busier, maximalist look. And that's okay. That's just taste and preference. Behind me on this wall, it's a large wall. I just have one tiny piece of artwork. A lot of people would say, that's not enough art. There's a wall over there that has artwork that you can't see, and a wall over there that has artwork, and a window. So to me, that's not enough. It's fine. But someone else would come in and say, oh, this is a big blank wall. Let me fill it with things. So just kind of recognizing, knowing yourself and what you like. That will help inform what you do as well. So now we're talking about how to declutter. So when you think about how, the method that I most often recommend is the 3-box method. And that it's really 3 containers. And if you're at home alone, you probably don't want to take everything out of a space just because it will be so overwhelming. But you can gather your 3 boxes. I like a trash bag for trash, Amazon box or, cardboard box for donations. And then a laundry basket is great for things that you're keeping but maybe aren't in the right spot, or you're kind of taking it out because you need to rearrange it before you organize it. So those are the 3 receptacles: trash, donation, keep. And it could be donation or sale. Sometimes people are into selling stuff, but it's kind of like, it's in good shape. It's not trash, but, I want to get rid of it. And then at the end, you're, start ending 15 minutes before the end of your time and getting those things where they need to go. So that's where you can imagine, if you have a lot of things out of place, that might take a long time. Sometimes when we go out, we spend, 2 hours getting things out and 1 hour putting things away. So, consider how much time you have and the volume and how much you can do. Another strategy is no mess decluttering. It's really very similar as the 3-box method, but you would, instead of creating these piles, you walk that item or, gather several items and walk them to where they go right away. So, maybe you pull out a library book that needs to be returned, or a shirt that you ordered that needs to be returned, and you're like, oh, I gotta drop this off at Kohl's or what have you. So maybe you're like, I'm going to put those, maybe you have a little spot by your door that you collect those items. You should. A landing area. Or maybe you put it right in your car and then you're like, I'll get it this week. So you would take those things and walk them right out instead of generating a pile that you have to deal with at the end of your session. So that's the no mess decluttering strategy. So when you have things to keep, you're sort of taking them to their home immediately instead of at the end of the session. So that's kind of the how. I wanted to touch on each room that you might be having. Of course, everyone's house is a little bit different and people have specialized rooms, but a bedroom, Again, thinking about the purpose. So the purpose is, I would think, sleeping, relaxing. For kids, it might be playing, quiet toys. Reading is very common. And maybe it's something, maybe you do some stretching or yoga or other quiet exercises. So again, just identifying that purpose and then removing the excess. What is the stuff that doesn't fit there? And if sometimes we do have a one-off, this is a birthday present for my niece, and, it's sitting on my dresser because her birthday is next week. Great. If you have a birthday present there every month, you probably need to create a home if you don't want to look at it. If it's fine, if you're like, I like it right there because then I don't forget about it, that's great. If you don't want to look at it, what people do is, clear out half a drawer, clear out an area in the closet, and make that the designated birthday gift spot. So that's where, you have to use some critical thinking of like, is this happening over and over again? Does this happen all the time? I'm always looking at my daughter's art supplies. Okay, then you need to create a home for the daughter's art supplies. And if there's too many, maybe you need to cut back or create a bigger home because that's important to her and the family. So you have to use your brain. That's part of why I love decluttering and organizing. It's simple. It's not complicated, but it can be challenging. It's like a puzzle. Back to the bedrooms, dressers and closets. Really, ideally, it's clothing, it's bedding, jackets, shoes. If you have a great big mudroom entryway, lots of space, and you can keep all the jackets there, great, more power to you. Most of us, including me, don't have a large space for that. So extra shoes and jackets that are off season belong in each person's closet. So I have, it's summer right now. I just have one light spring jacket down by my front door and a couple pairs of sandals. And the rest of my shoes are in my closet along with my winter things. So you want to have enough space in your closet. That means not having too many clothes. We all probably have plenty of clothes, but just making sure you have room for those things. That's where they kind of belong. Possibly luggage, although I think luggage and travel items could go in a long-term storage area. Bedding for your bed, that's ideal into the closet of the room that it belongs in. So bathrooms, a lot of times we have many extra products because we try something new, right? Like this face wash is going to change your life. This massage oil, this hair shampoo, this special conditioner. We try it and then we're like, it didn't work, didn't smell good, it gave me a rash, made my skin red. Whatever it is, just toss those. I give you full permission. You do not have to keep them. Keep those tried and true toiletries that you love. Get rid of, expired medications, old medications. You can take those. Most police stations have like a post office box and you can just drop them in. You don't even have to go inside. Most of the time it's in a foyer. Like they don't really need to see you. You just drop them in and then move on, and they're properly disposed of. And Walgreens has a box like that a lot of times too. You just have to kind of look online which ones have it. A lot of people have giant first aid collections. A lot of times, maybe you had an injury, a cut on your arm, and you got the big Band-Aids, and then you never use them again for 5 years. It's okay to get rid of those because most of the time, the next time you have a giant big cut, you're going to end up purchasing the Band-Aids anyway. You want to consider if it's small, low cost, replaceable, highly replaceable, feel free to get rid of it. Home office, sometimes many people struggle with paperwork, and if that's you, that's okay. The one thing I see missing sometimes is, do you have a place to store your long-term papers? So, for example, it's usually like healthcare papers, maybe housing, a lease, mortgage information, house sale information, tax information. So you need to have a place where you can put those, right? Because I'm saving, if I get a tax paper today, it's June, or it's not June, it's July. But, if I have a tax paper today, I'm storing that for, I don't know what the math is, 7 months, 8 months until I do my taxes. So I don't want that to sit right on top of my desk. I want to have a place to put that. So just making sure you have a place to put papers and then use it. Dining room, this sometimes is the area of the bar collection, and just wondering if your bar collection matches what you use. I know when my husband and I got married, we got an extensive bar collection. Martini glasses and all kinds of different specialized glasses. And if we're honest, we don't drink any of that. So, over time, I have decluttered most of those things. We do have wine glasses, and I think we probably have champagne glasses, for a New Year's Eve party, something like that. But really everything else, that's not our scene. And so it was just kind of taking up space, and we wanted a more streamlined look in our dining area. And so what happened too is we had this big, heavy buffet, and it was full of all of the glassware. So then when we cut back on the glassware that we didn't need, we also didn't need that giant heavy buffet. In fact, we got rid of it, and now all the glassware is in a cabinet, a kitchen cabinet kind of, and then now we have like a decorative shelf that's like very small. So, again, just like, does it match? What's the purpose? Does it match what you actually use, right? In the kitchen, the kitchen is tough. Usually the kitchen, living room, and sometimes they're even like combined spaces. That's really the heart of the home, right? The kitchen. And it can become a real catch-all. So one thing to think about is having a place for incoming mail and papers. If you don't want that to be kind of everywhere, have a single place. Whether that's you putting out a basket, like, hey, everyone, put your stuff in here, and then you do have to make the time to go through it, or clearing a drawer, hey, I have this drawer, like, with some napkins, and I can, declutter and get rid of stuff, and now here's my drawer for incoming papers. That's how people with really clean counters, sometimes it's like, how do they do that? They have all the same stuff, or a lot of it, but they have decluttered the nearby cabinets and drawers. And so if you open the cabinets and drawers, that's where those things are. It's not that they don't have water bottles and mail and medicine and toaster oven. It's just that they put them in the cabinets or the drawers. Like, that's what they do so that they can have clear countertops. So, really clearing out the excess there, especially in the kitchen, duplicate items or specialty items, right? Do you really need an avocado slicer? And I love avocados. Or can you just use a knife and a spoon? So just clearing some of that stuff out will make a big difference. And then most people that we see do seem to have a kitchen overflow area. So that's something to consider if you don't have one, or if the kitchen is feeling really full. These days, with people shopping at Costco, shopping at Sam's Club, buying stuff in bulk, they do need a secondary area for some of those extra, drinks or cereal, or, just people do have a lot more small appliances, a blender and their mixer, which they're probably not, most people aren't baking every day. And so having an overflow space for those can help a lot. And that's often, we see it like garage, basement, laundry room, maybe the mud room. Kind of depends how your house is set up. Living room, does your furniture give you proper storage for your whatever you have? I want to say DVD collection, and that probably makes me, dates me a bit. But what do you have in your living room? And then if you don't want it out, if you don't want to look at it, do you have sort of the right furniture to cover that up? If you have 5 game consoles, like, are we playing all of those game consoles? Could some of them move to the playroom? Just really considering what's the purpose, what's being used, and what's extra, and just trying to get rid of that extra stuff. Playrooms, kids' playrooms, you know, when your kids are really little, you end up with toys everywhere because they're little and they won't be alone. But as they get older, they can be in a playroom area by themselves. And so you want to begin to move the toys out of the living room and have some real adult space. And even there's, a middle time when maybe they'll pull things out, but at least you can put the toys back in the playroom. It also helps you to see how much you have and how much volume is there. There's lots of research out there. Kids with fewer toys play longer, they play more creatively. And most American homes, there's not a really danger of your child not having enough toys. It's really the opposite. It's too many toys, so many that they really can't get involved, so many that they feel anxious and overwhelmed, and they maybe don't even know, right? How many of us feel that way, but that's how we're living all the time, and so we don't really have a good baseline or understanding of what that calm feeling could be, which is what I want you to have. So just be ruthless. You can always box stuff up and wait and see if they miss it. And then storage areas. Everybody needs some storage. The proper things to be storing are usually like seasonal items, such as like holiday or, winter if it's summertime. Travel, I mentioned like luggage. So things that you're not using very often. And then sentimental. You just want to be careful of like how big the sentimental collection is. Usually a bin or maybe 2 per person is very reasonable. And that's what we see. If you have children, lots of papers seem important, but even a few years later, you can go through those old school papers and begin to, just keep the gems. And that's all that they're going to want from you later. And that's all the space you want to dedicate, is really a bin or 2 at the most. And of course, there could be unique situations, but I would caution excessive storage beyond that. There becomes problems. Anything you put into storage has to come out. And, really, what are you storing it for? When, what? Is it realistic, or are you just kind of holding on to something? Is it sort of a fantasy? So I just wanted to wrap up with considering, are you really struggling with how to declutter every room in the house? Hopefully with the tips and things to consider, that will be much easier. A lot of people struggle with getting started. It's just like getting over the hump of starting a big project. Maybe people are feeling overwhelmed, not sure how to progress. And so that would be different tips. So I would recommend just thinking about that. Are you not sure what to do? Or is it just like getting started? And there are tips for getting started. For sure, calling a friend, looking for someone who's kind, putting on a YouTube video of cleaning with me, putting in like a podcast or audiobook, or even listening to a TV show or movie that can kind of get you moving, putting on some dance music to get you moving. Those are all some tips for getting started that are not so much about how. Another one is just setting a short timer, just committing to 5 minutes. Sometimes it's like you just have to get through the first 5 minutes and then the rest is easy. And then, of course, always hiring a professional is a great choice if you're still feeling stuck. So I'd love to hear how to declutter, how you're doing with decluttering every room in the house. And are there rooms that I've missed or things that I haven't mentioned that you want to talk about? Put it in the comments below. Thanks.